I literally was supposed to start a new job today, and
So feeling like this is not normal whatsoever. And I'm not saying that from a place of shame. I'm saying it as a person who felt like that for many, many years. I would, pee into a bottle, um, so that I didn't have to run into my roommate in the hallway, who I was perfectly fine with, who I was friends with. I would drive to a place, like to hike. I would take 30 minutes to drive to a place, and I would look in the parking lot at the people walking around, and I would convince myself that they were either plotting against me, or that they thought that I was fat, or they thought that I was ugly, and I would start to cry, and I would drive all the way back home. I couldn't drive next to a person. Like where the car is right next to you, I had to be like where their window isn't near mine, because I thought that they would be like looking at the side of my head and judging me. A lot of this was like borderline psychosis as well. I understand that, not just anxiety, but horrific anxiety. If I ordered Postmates, I would I would pace back and forth in my apartment, and practice what I was going to say to them before the food was delivered, just because I was going to have to open the door and take the bag from them. This was before the bag drop thing happened. I would look at my Instagram story, and if I saw like somebody that I know looking at my story, I convinced myself that they were plotting against me, making fun of me. I lived in a constant state of mental and physical, and I'll get to that later, but mental and physical anguish. I was going out of my mind, and for a very long time I was going out of my mind. It got the absolute worst in probably 2021. And it all changed whenever I started carnivore, the carnivore diet. And I know that's very controversial to many people, but the things that we are eating are causing a histamine response in our body and an inflammatory response in our body, because they aren't natural, and they aren't natural to the diets that we were eating out in the wild, and the chemical response. I'm not a fucking doctor. This is me explaining as best as I can why this worked for me and has worked for so many thousands of people. So take it how you will. I'm not a medical professional. I'm also not peddling anything to you. I'm literally just, I've never made a dime talking about this shit. I'm just a woman that this happened to, and I want to help people, because this was my entire life. My entire life was spent feeling like this girl, and it got the absolute worst towards the end, before I found the carnivore diet. I was also in terrible physical pain, but, seed oils, number one, I believe, is the number one culprit of this inflammatory response that we're getting in our body, and the histamine response, and it's causing inflammation in our brains. And there's actually been a lot of bullshit people at Harvard over the years that have been paid off by these like seed oil companies and stuff like that, and that's why they'll peddle things to you like garbage, Impossible Burgers and shit like that. But I think there is one good guy at Harvard right now. I can't remember what his name is, but he I would have to look it up, or you could probably find it very easily online, but he's starting to study the effects of the ketogenic diet and carnivore diet on people with schizophrenia. And the things that they are finding are absolutely groundbreaking. Because I cured all of this, I was on I was on Xanax, for my anxiety. I was on extremely heavy antihistamines that would essentially just knock me out for hours and hours at a time. I had horrible narcolepsy. I was only able to stay awake for about 2 hours a day. So I had to take Adderall just in order to be able to stay awake for 2 hours a day. And I would eat, and I would walk my dogs, and then I would go straight back to sleep. That was the only thing I could do. Horrible pain. I'll get into all the physical stuff later, but this is specifically speaking mentally. If you feel like this girl and you are open-minded, try the carnivore diet. You don't have to stay that way. In my opinion, depending on your case and stuff like that, I don't think you have to stay specifically only, I know the word carnivore is scary for many people. You don't have to stay specifically carnivore for like the rest of your life, in my opinion. You can do it, get to a point of comfortability, and then you can add and incorporate other things. That's what I did. But, it will decrease the inflammation in your brain, and you will finally feel calm for the first time in your entire life. And that is a promise. That is a promise that that will happen to you. So if this is happening, to you and you feel this way and you feel this level of anxiety that is ruining your fucking life. I lived this, and I have spoken, and I have the anecdotal evidence of my own experience, and then there's groups like Carnivore RX on Facebook. No, these are all just people that did this. These are all people that did this and share their experiences with each other. They're not people that are sponsored by anybody. They're not people that are making any kind of money. They're not any kind of influencers. I'm not either. In regards to this diet specifically, I think I already said it. I've never made a dime talking about this stuff. I think it's really, really fucking important, and we're right on the cusp of it, and people are finally starting to understand it and open their eyes to the fact that meat isn't inflammatory whatsoever. It's I believe the only food that you can sustain yourself on in its entirety without adding anything else. And many people will argue that, and nutritionists will roll their eyes back in their heads, and doctors will freak out because because you can use that in place of them peddling you expensive medication and being a customer for the rest of their lives. But if you're experiencing what this girl is experiencing, or your story sounds anything like mine, try carnivore and see how you feel. It took me 2.5 weeks for about 75% symptom drop off, and I had about 200 symptoms. And I would say at the 3-week mark is typically whenever you start to see everything. And then at about 2 months, I had 0 symptoms, and I am a completely healthy. I'm off of all medication. I feel calm for the first time in my entire life. I feel completely zen. I have the ability to process emotions and feel, ups and downs, but I am zen. And I've never felt that before in my entire life, not with any kind of medication. So you have to this is an inflammatory response. It isn't your fault. It's poison in our food. Love you, bye.